Welcome to Deal Talk. I'm Jeffrey Veit. We're going to talk about buying cars and trucks and motorcycles and boats and motorhomes and avoiding all the tricks and getting the job done and save some money while we're doing it. You know, I was looking this week and I got thinking about we hadn't talked about in a while was crash tests. And the information about crash tests and knowing how the model you're looking at or the one you have scored, you can get that information from the yearly guide from Consumer Report on their used edition and probably on the new edition too, on that yearly guide, not on the one that comes out each month, but they have a yearly edition, which they do every 8-9 months. Or you can go to the National Highway Safety Administration online, or you can go to the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety online, both.com. They'll have the information about crash tests. It would really no point in me going over it here. I don't know of any one that's particularly terrible, but there are some that are better than others, no question about it. Most vehicles are listed on those sites. But if it's a new model, it might not be listed because the crash tests have not been done. You got to wait till the crash test is done. They don't do that until the vehicles are out for a while. Sometimes it takes a while before they even get tested. And once they get tested, then it has to get listed and all that stuff, you know, the bureaucracy. If there's a model you want without a crash test, then buyer beware. But one thing you can always look at is brand testing. You look at the brand and see how the brand is scored. And if the brand scores good, chances are the next one's going to score good too. Most companies are really on top of the crash test. They don't want to have a bad score. Some are looking to get a better score than others, and they're the ones that would have a whole brand of good tests. If you've got a new model picked out and it's not in the crash test, look at the brand. It'll tell you a lot. Brands generally score well, you're pretty safe. Did you know that during the pandemic, people are driving a little crazier? That's true. I can't believe it. This company named ZenDrive did a study of 100,000 drivers in the U.S., and they reported that 27% increase in speeding. People are speeding 27% more of the time, or I don't know if they meant 27% of the time or 27% more of the people, the 100,000, are going to be speeding, and speeding is an arbitrary number. I think what they meant was, at least would be my opinion, was that 27% chance that they're going to speed any given time more. Me, you, everybody. And there's a 25% increase in hard braking. So it may be just the number of people. Instead of being 20,000 that drive, fast at speed, it may be 40,000 now. And there's 25% more, which would be another 50,000 increase in hard braking. And then there's a huge increase in phone usage while driving. So those three things mean, I mentioned this because we need to think about it. We have to watch out for the other guy. I remember years ago, they used to have these ads on for a long time. Watch out for the other guy, And it's probably true, if people are more upset, more nervous, they're trying to get home, they don't want to be out in the COVID, in the air, whatever the reason is. They might be just stressed because they don't have their job. They might be stressed because they don't have the hours they had. They might be stressed because they're having to spend money on things they didn't want to spend money on. So they're driving faster, which means they have to stop quicker because they're going too fast when they get to the intersection that should have stopped, right? I mean, that's kind of what's happening. People are just a little bit more aggressive during this, and I think it's all people. I think there's a little bit of that rubs off on us all. But I thought that was pretty interesting information. I've received a few emails lately that are especially worth talking about. This is something I'm just I don't know if I'm happy or disappointed. We could talk about all the ones I received, but usually they're the same thing. They cover the same subject. I'll have 4 or 5 with the same question. But just when I think that I've done all I can do and I can't think of anything to do for the week, I get some emails that'll tell me exactly what to cover for the week. And it's kind of what happened to me this week, There are, quite a few that we received that were things we'd covered in the last month that should have been covered, and they didn't get it. So I guess I didn't do as good a job as I wanted, But people still had questions, me bad, right? The first one I'm going to talk about is Carol from Clarks Summit, Pennsylvania. I know where that is. I've been by there on Route 81. Yeah. Deal Talk. Your podcast talked about doing a bunch of stuff to vehicle to get it ready for trade, and she didn't put in there, but I'll mention or sale. My friend's father is a manager at a local dealership. He said all that stuff doesn't matter. They can look right through it. Save my money. Who should I believe? Well, that's a pretty legitimate question, right? Carol had a legitimate concern because her friend's father, being a local dealership manager, the guy should know what he's doing, right? Said, forget doing what they do. Yeah, don't do what we do. Don't let us do what we do. You just don't do anything. And that's kind of what they were saying. Don't do what we do, but just settle for less and skip it. But I'm sure that guy said it because, number one, the worse your vehicle looks or operates, the easier it is to convince you to trade it. Number two, he's a local dealer and doesn't want to compete with your vehicle and give you more for your vehicle because he has to if it's looking a lot better. And number three, he didn't think through before he spoke. His point was ridiculous. What I suggested will help any trade or sale at any level. I don't care what he said. He's not correct. He had ulterior motives to say that. You should always, always, always get your trade ready for trading or selling. It's the same. When you trade your vehicle in, you're selling it to the dealer. You want him, you're trying to get him to appeal to your trade-in. Well, you're not going to do it when there's, a big dent and there's a bunch of chocolate stuck all over the seats or whatever. All those things have an effect. They do. They're no different than anybody else. Enough said about that. Another one I received, but that's a very basic one. The reason I brought it up is because it's very basic. It's about getting your vehicle ready, and we just covered that. I think it was last week or the week before, but I got one I received from Immute in Cleveland, Ohio area. I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but Immute is how it's spelled. He wrote he looked at 2 Ford trucks, exactly the same, new ones, and the Monroney price was different by $1,453. That I've compared the trucks closely, and they're equipped the same. The only difference is the color. How could that be based on what you have said about on the podcast? There was more to it, but that's the gist of what we're going to talk about. Immute had an unusual problem, although I have said it before. After checking the serial numbers, the more expensive Monroney label was on the wrong truck. They had gotten mixed up somehow when they got into the dealership, whether they should have been already on the windows, but they must not have been. Always check the Monroney against the truck's serial number before you buy one. Look on the Monroney, it's got a serial number, and look on the truck on the dash and look at the serial number. On a car, on anything you should, right? Because you could think you're buying one with a certain amount of equipment based on the Monroney, and the one you're buying hasn't got any of that stuff on it, and it's a heck of a lot of problem to straighten it out afterwards. I've had people buy the wrong car when I was in the business, and it's a pain in the neck, but they bought the wrong car. It was a mistake that we all made, and it's mostly has to be blamed on the dealer, They should be checking this stuff as part of their business, right? In this case, the dealer gave Immute half of the difference in additional discount. At least that's what he said he did. Due diligence anyway, Immute. That's what I told him. You got to go through the due diligence anyway. I don't care if he says they're going to give you, an extra half might be half of what you'd get from another dealership when you're buying in another one. So you still have to do it, but, at least the dealer admitted a mistake. And it was not a mistake. I mean, I'm sure they didn't plan on it doing it. But it's, it goes to show you that it was hard to figure that out. And it's not something you're just going to automatically think of. So the point is, read the Monroney. Every time you buy a new vehicle, read the Monroney label. All of it. This last one is a good question from Ron in Ellesmere, Delaware. Recently, you talked about buying when you're in a rush. What if you can't get all that done that you mentioned quick enough? What are the tips when you can't get all the due diligence done? Thanks for all the help. Well, that's the whole point of that particular episode. That was about a couple of months ago, was that you have to do as much as you can. Ron, in this case, bought without getting it all done, but most of the things we talked about, he did get done. He didn't get a few things done. He didn't get 4 quotes. He didn't have enough time. He had all day, but he didn't even start until late afternoon, and so he didn't have enough time to get it done, and he had to get it done. If you're in a hurry and circumstances slow you down and you only have a few choices, one is to rent a vehicle for a day or two so that you can take the time it takes to get the whole job done. The other is to get as much done as you can and let your gut feeling pick the winning deal and just do the best you can. I mean, Ron took all the time he could. He couldn't take the next day. He had to get to work. He needed a vehicle. It was as simple as that. And so he had to make a decision at the end of the day, and he did. And as it turns out, we discussed it during the deal. He didn't get hosed. He did make some savings. I can't verify every nickel because all of the stuff wasn't done, but he did all right. And that's all you can do. You really can't do much else. If you're out of time, you're out of time. Time's up. Time's up. What are you going to do, right? There's not much you can do, but that we talked about in the past, that rush. If you're in a rush, if you get as much done as you can, start as early as you can, and take the whole day. If you got one day to buy a car, take the whole day. Don't do it. Try to do it in 2 hours because you want to, go to the movies. No. If you're going to only got one day to buy a vehicle and to do everything, take the whole day. Use the whole day. Get as much done as you can. That's what that was all about. If you like the podcast, please take a couple of minutes and do a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or wherever you download your podcast, whether it be iHeartRadio or Spotify or whichever one you use. We're on there. Do a review. If you've already done a review, thank you so much. Those of you who'd like some written material to carry with you when you're out shopping, I don't know, I talk about this every week, and get a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon Kindle or Barnes & Noble Nook. It's $3. Yes, $3. It gives you all the basics. You don't have to worry, tune in your podcast and try to figure out, fast forward to the spots that you're looking for. This one will review all the things, the basics, and you can know what that you're not going to make any obvious mistakes, and it's $3, right? Think about this. What else can you buy in the year 2020 for $3? Now, take that list, I'm sure it's quite short, and figure out what on that list could save you $1,000 by spending $3. See my point? Spend the $3. Download it to your phone or to your iPad or whatever. I want to talk about questions like these, the ones we had earlier. It's the basics of dealing and protecting yourself or getting that information you absolutely need to have. Let's cover some of the basics that come up during the process that you need to think about, just the basic ones that should never get forgotten. The things that you always got to remember. Do you really need to shop your trade at a used vehicle dealer after getting the book prices? Do you really need to do that? You don't have to. No. But the more you put in, the more you get out every single time. Books are educated guesses. They cover every part of the country and every market. They're even sectional. NADA, I think, has 4 sections of America. I think it's the North, South, East, and West editions, something like that. But shopping it to the dealers in your area, 3 dealers, will tell you what these guys are willing to pay. Used dealers tells you what they're willing to pay at the auction. And what they're willing to pay at the auction is going to be the real wholesale value. I don't care what the book says. These guys do it every day for a living. Not one. You got to get 3 or 4 of them and add those together with the books. And with all that information, you stir it up like a can of paint, you're going to come up with an answer on what the wholesale value of your vehicle is. And from that, you can figure out the retail value, 20%, right? Simple, but you got to do it. That's something you should do. It should never be a case where you don't. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I wouldn't think of doing it without having done that. Shopping your trade to used vehicle dealers and comparing it to the book gives you the reality of your market. No question about it. Won't 1 or 2 online quotes get the job done? That's another one that people ask. That can be and often isn't a true picture of the market, especially in large metro markets. You need 4 quotes to cover the possibilities, and at least 1 should be from outside your market. Something 100 miles away, someplace out in the wilderness, right? You want to get a bunch of pictures on this. A lot of fluctuation between price is a good thing, not a bad thing. It tells you how, different the market is. But second of all, it'll give you a range of where you need to be. And if you get under all of those, well, you're probably doing pretty good, huh? Another one, we talk about dealing in person. Never buy anything online. We talked about that. Never, ever, 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 ever. Look, shop, get the prices, get product information. Don't buy online. Don't do it. First of all, it eliminates any middle mouths to feed. If you don't buy online, you just buy in person. You don't have anybody in the middle there. There's nobody else making a living off your deal. It also gives you a chance to investigate the entire dealership. While you're there at the dealership and talking face-to-face, you can look things over and get a feel for with the culture of that dealership, and you can tell what all of the amenities are, whether they have rental cars or loaner cars, or what days the service is open, or they open at night, they open Saturdays, do they have all those things, right? You need to know that. Because when you buy from a dealer online, what happens is they deliver you the car. There's some dealer out there that's going to be doing your service work and stuff. They went and got it from a dealer. Most of those guys are not dealerships. They don't have dealer's licenses. They don't have inventory. A few of them do. I think one that does is Carvana. But they don't have a real dealership. They're not going to take care of you beyond that. That's it. You bought the car, you're out. See ya. That's not what you want to go through. So you got to know what you're getting into. And that's what I'm talking about. Face-to-face with the dealer is the best way. Face-to-face, people are a lot more flexible. For a dealer, an internet deal is just an email source. That's all it is. I hear from customers, they'll say, well, the dealer got it to where I could afford it, or where you wanted the payment. That's not a reason to buy. Nope, that is not. That's good that they did that. It's good that they make that effort. It gives you an indication of where their head's at and how much they're willing to help you. But that's not necessarily the reason to buy. It doesn't mean much. Just because a dealer flexes to meet your budget doesn't mean you shouldn't question and compare it. How do you know that they're not just changing the term of the loan? They didn't give you anything. How did they get to that budget? How did they do it? What is the flexibility with another dealer? Can another dealer beat that? You'll never know all that. It's nice they got your payment. Don't let that be a reason that you collapse on the deal. If the dealer gives you a little better interest rate or a little more for your trade, does that not mean that there is flexibility? And does that mean that we forget about everything else? No, I don't think so. You don't. Another one that we've talked about on to show every single week, we talk about it briefly at the end, is OTD and CPI. OTD is out the door. Every price has got to be OTD. It's not something you can say, well, the dealer says, well, we'll get into the other details later. We'll get into the exact numbers later, but for now, there's the price. Of course, he's left off the dealer fee and the tax. It's not the price at all, right? But OTD, financing can be worked out. First of all, you got to get the out-the-door price figured out. That's paramount. So it's got to make sure that it's OTD. Never mind any price that isn't OTD. Tell him, look, you don't want to give me the OTD price? Okay, I'll go someplace else. I want the out-the-door price. I want everything in there. They'll do it, believe me. CPI, complete payment information. Always. Dealers can get your payment anywhere you want without changing the price at all. All they have to do is expand the finance term. Don't worry, your head is in the don't bury your head in the sand, because they adjust your monthly or add a little bit to your trade. Don't do that. Keep track of the factors. Know how many months, what the interest rate was, know how much down payments included, how much they're expecting you to put down. You want to know all that. To get a good deal, you have to be assertive, not aggressive, just assertive. Don't get aggressive. You might like the dealer. On the other hand, you might say, this is a good guy, or I know him, I've been around there, I bought here before. They are not your buddy. I know you want them to be. It makes you more comfortable, but they are not. Everybody answers to somebody else, right? They won't be embarrassed to lower their numbers. They won't be embarrassed to negotiate. They do it every day, as a matter of fact. In fact, they think that in the car business, in the motorcycle and boat, all of them, they have a name for the people that don't haggle. They're called laydowns. They call them. That's what they're known as. You come inside, you look at the vehicle, and you lay down. That means you just, okay, here you are, take my money. That's not what you want to be. That's not what I want to be. You might. This podcast can't help you then, because we're not going to do that. We're going to save every nickel we can. We're not going to let anybody take advantage of us, and we're going to get a good deal, and we're going to feel good about our purchase when we're done. That's what we do on this podcast. Often people will say, I don't want to shop around because I have a friend in the business, or my nephew is a salesperson, or my whole family buys there. No need to shop. Those reasons make a person feel more secure. But are they true? Sadly, the fact is that friends and family are always the biggest profit in the automobile business. Not a worse deal, but just a ho-hum deal, maybe at best. I'm telling you, you got to do the due diligence even when it's a friend. Then go. In fact, that's a good test. You go do the due diligence without your friend. Then you're going to see your friend and have him quote your price. and look at the difference, and you'll fall out of your chair every single time because that's just the way it is. You're a friend, and so the manager takes advantage and says, well, this guy's your friend. Oh, good, let's hit him with this because you're figuring you'll stand still for it. Next time, you're going to do that. Do the due diligence, then go see your friend, your family, or your neighbor, or your people you've always done business with, and see what happens. I'm willing to bet that 99 out of 100 of you will be shocked. The only way to know if you received a good deal in any case is to complete the due diligence. Otherwise, it's just a guess. I went in, I got $2,000 off. I got a deal. I made a deal. Whereas if you'd found out and shopped, you might have found out that really the deal is at $3,000 off or $3,500 off. Where there's two, there's three. Always, right? Another tip is if you're comparing numbers between two dealers and the OTD is very close. You got two dealers and the OTD is close. Look at the dealer with the dealer fee is the smallest. Whoever has that lower dealer fee or no dealer fee at all is the best way to go. Yep. You know why? Even though the price is the same, you'd think, well, it doesn't matter if there's 5 dealer fees or 2 or 1. Well, it really doesn't, except for the fact that if you've got comparable same numbers without dealer fees, I'll tell you why. The dealer fee is not protected by insurance. A dealer fee won't be figured in a loss unless the vehicle is brand new, and maybe not even then. Better to have those dollars reflected in the price instead of a fee. Look in any book you want. There's no ad for a dealer fee. Once you pay that money, it's gone. It's never coming back. It's not going to be there. It's another item that comes off from the resale. It's not going to count. So if you spent $30,000 on a vehicle and $1,000 of it was the fee, well, all it's going to be considered is $29,000 you spent on the vehicle. That other $20,000 disappeared because it's part of the dealer fee. So if you have a choice, they're both the same price. Both places are the same price. Both places are fine. You don't care where you buy, or it doesn't really make any difference. But one shows it all in the price. The other one shows in the dealer fee. The one that shows it all in the price, that's the one to buy from. Yep, just because the insurance is different. Sounds small, but when you have a loss, that's another $1,000. I don't know, it's not too small to me. A lot of listeners complain about the dealer wanting a lot of information before talking price. Sometimes there's a good reason, like needing info to get a credit report so they know what interest rate to use with you, and they wouldn't know otherwise. All of the other information is so they can contact you in case you don't buy, and if you're paying cash, you don't need to give them any info at all, first of all. But you don't need to give them info. You don't need to give them any info, really, until you have purchased. They'll say, well, we got to check the tariffs list. No, you don't. Not unless you buy. That's when they check the tariffs list. I'm just looking. We'll check that if I decide to buy. You don't need to give them anything. If you've got your credit score and you went online and got your own credit score, they don't need anything from you except your name. Here's my credit score. If it's not true, we don't have a deal. That's my score. You can avoid all this stuff if you have the credit score yourself. The dealer thinks the more the questions that you answer, the easier it is going to be to get a yes out of you. They're kind of like softening you up, like they're kind of working you like a piece of dough, like you're making a loaf of bread. They don't need any info until you agree to buy. They don't. They may need to see your license before you drive something. Well, that's reasonable to make sure you got a driver's license. The story about checking the tariff list, again, that's not true unless you buy. Your name should be enough for most pricing. That's all you need. They should be able to do whatever you want. You're going to be their customer. And if they won't, if the dealer won't do that stuff, run for the hills because the culture doesn't get any better. It doesn't change. Things aren't going to get better with that dealer. If they're not going to be flexible with you, if they're ashamed of their prices to the point where they don't want to do anything without seeing all your information first so they can badger you, you don't need them. I'm telling you, move on. The worksheet the dealer uses is your friend, too. They, of course, will try to pin you down, to your biggest concern by separating all the information. Well, here's the monthly payment, here's the down payment, and here's the trade-in. And they're hoping you're saying, no, I like that. I just don't like that. That down payment's way down. They want to figure out what your hot button is, and they'll try to work on that one. They can raise the payment, lower the down payment. It's like a teeter-totter. And that way they don't have to adjust the price at all, but you don't have to do that. But after they've given you a number, just get a copy of it. Look, here's the worksheet. I want a copy. Well, we're not allowed to give that out. Yes, you are. I want a copy of the worksheet or I'm never coming back. Just be polite. Say, look, how can you expect me to trust you if I can't have a copy of the worksheet? If you're just persistent, again, assertive, not aggressive, just assertive, you'll get what you want. Your only concern should be the terms as OTD and CPI, complete payment info. Those are the ones that are most important, right? If the numbers are in writing, there's no backing up. They can't go back on you. If you get it in writing, they can't back up on you. If they estimate payments, insist on the correct payment and the CPI. Always, those are really, really big factor. Complete payment information is really paramount. You can't really talk about a deal without that. If you have out-the-door pricing on the worksheet and you've shopped the banks, you'll be able to figure out your own payments. You don't need anybody to tell you what the payments are, especially if you've downloaded a payment calculator for your smartphone or your tablet from iTunes or Google Play. They're free. There's one on there that's really good. I forget what it's called. My Lease. I think it's called My Lease, and it's $1. Oh, my God. If the dealer won't give you a firm payment based on your beacon score and the out the door, it's time to leave and figure your own payments through a calculator. But you don't want to do business with that person. They obviously have issues, right? What about advertising? I always say the ad pricing doesn't mean a thing, and it doesn't. Don't pay any attention to what's in the ad. It means nothing. But what it does mean in the ad is the disclosure at the bottom. And what that'll tell you is the ethics of the dealer you're dealing with. Dealers with a big disclosure, doesn't include this, doesn't include that, doesn't include this, doesn't include that. Usually those guys have ethics issues. And like I said, you don't buy the vehicle and get past that culture and think, well, the service will be different. No, it's through the whole dealership. It's an example of the dealer or the general manager or the company's rule. That's right. Nothing's going to change in that case. It's all going to be about the same. So whatever you get treated out front, expect the same thing in the back. And if it's going to be bad, just leave. There's a lot of fish in the sea. Believe me, a lot of times, just by avoiding the whole thing is the best way to handle it. Here's a few odds and ends to add to the list on a used vehicle. On a used vehicle, always check for flood signs, no matter where you live. That's something we've talked about a lot. That shouldn't be something you have to call about. You check for flood signs on any vehicle, any used vehicle. I don't care how old it is, how new it is. If it looks like it's got mud in the frame rails, or it smells like it's been in water when you shut the doors and roll the windows up, just go on to something else. Don't take the chance. If the title says it was in Texas or Louisiana, run for the hills. I'm telling you, that's just why even take the chance? Just avoid it. Car-fax, auto check, either one of those two. Always. If you're looking at a 1-year-old trade, 1-year-old with less than 15,000 miles, and you know for sure it's had no paint work, well, then you're probably okay without the Car-fax. Although, if it was me, I'd get one. But on that, anything more than that, 2 years old vehicle, get the Car-fax. I think they're $12, I think, $14 if the dealer doesn't have one. Every dealer's going to have one anyway. Has to see it. But if it's an individual or something, or they may have just taken it in trade, have them get the Car-fax. Individual, get the serial number, get your own. If you're serious about buying it, what's another $15, right? If you're looking at a used car from a dealer, get a copy of the repair order for what they did to it to get it ready. I want to see the repair order from all the stuff you did to it. See what the dealer did to the vehicle after they got it. That would eliminate something that missed the Car-fax. Let's say they fixed the body, had a big smash, and the dealer fixed it. That wouldn't be on the Car-fax. No. Or let's say they had to it's got 20,000 miles on it, they're telling you, and they had to do brakes all the way around it. Well, that would be, why do you have to do brakes at 20,000 miles? Or tires at 20,000 miles? That doesn't seem right, does it? No. Call some used vehicle dealers and tell them you're selling one exactly like the one you're looking at. Just call them on the phone. Say, hey, look, I've got a blah, blah, blah. And you tell them the mileage. You don't have to tell them, you're just going to give them the basic. And I'm thinking about selling it before I drive down. I just wondering, give me some idea what you might give me for it. See what the value is at. That average number, take the 3 or 4 dealers you call, that's wholesale. You can't expect to go buy for wholesale. You're not wholesale. You don't have a dealer's license. But if you want to know what they should be asking for it, you got about 20% to wholesale, and that's about what they should be asking. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pay less than that. Of course you try to buy it less than that, but at least you'll know where they are, where they should own it for, how much it's worth, and then wholesale and how much it's worth retail, and somewhere there in the middle, and figure it wherever you feel safe and happy. You're in the driver's seat in every circumstance. Be assertive and insist on the answers. Don't buy something without the answers. If you run out of time, do the best you can, right? Like we talked about earlier with that email earlier. But obviously, if you're going to be tough on, you only have a little bit of time, because you borrowed a car or because your car is dead. If you can, run a vehicle and make it over 2 days. But if not, you start early at least in the day. Give it the whole day. If you're going to take a day to buy, okay, take all day. Don't expect to do it in 2 hours. This was just a list of odds and ends to bring up in case you missed things that you should remember every time. They just go without saying. There's plenty more, obviously. These are just some basic, frame rails for the podcast. But in over 250 episodes, believe me, there's a lot more to learn. But for this week, that's it on Deal Talk. If you have a question or request or even a comment, please call or email. Callers, it's 407-801-4071 or 407-801-4071. And email dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com or dealtalk@mail.com. Both of those email addresses work. Please don't forget to do a review and do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. $3. I'm telling you, get a copy. However I can help you, contact me and you'll hear from me. All these people heard from me. All the people that email me hear from me. However I can help you. And remember, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information. We were just talking about that. The amount, the months, the rate, any required down payment to get to those terms on every single time they quote you a payment. Not just the first payment. Every time, have that information on there every single time. And every price you get should be all in. Every single cost required to buy the vehicle. The tax, the plates, the dealer fee, aftermarket options, everything. No, nothing else at all should be added to that number. They call that OTD. What to do.